Hi everybody, welcome to Book Reading with Cami. To start, we're going to read Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History by Vashti Harrison. Phyllis Wheaty, circa 1753 to 1784. Phyllis's literary skills were apparent early on. She published her first story when she was only about 14 years old. For anyone, this would be a major feat, but Phyllis was a slave, so it was truly unique. Her original name, date of birth, and exact birthplace are all unknown. When she was only 8 years old, she was taken from her home in Africa and sold to a trader, then transported across the Atlantic to Boston, Massachusetts, aboard a ship named the Phyllis. She was then resold to a man named John Wheatley, who purchased her to be a personal servant to his wife. The Wheatleys soon recognized her intelligence and began to nurture it. They taught Phyllis everything from theology to mythology, an education that was rare for a woman and nearly unheard of for a woman of color. With a family's backing, she traveled to England to publish her first book, poems on various subjects, religious and moral. She was the first African American woman that was a poet ever to be published. She corresponded with George Washington and the famous French writer and philosopher Voltaire, who called her a master of English verse. Her work was so powerful that abolitionists used it as an example of the intelligence and promise of black people. In 1767, she was emancipated. Unfortunately, she struggled financially and lived in poverty for the rest of her life. She received a great deal of praise during her lifetime, but validation from white society was integral to her success, and it never came. She continued writing, but was not able to find a publisher in America. Her natural talent and body of work live on as fundamental contributions to American literature. Sojourner Truth, circa 1797 to 1883. Abolitionist women's rights advocate. Sojourner was born a slave in upstate New York under the name Isabel Bumfree. Under the state's Gradual Emancipation Act, she was due her freedom in 1827. When she realized her slave owner was planning to keep her enslaved, Sojourner ran away with her infant daughter in tow. But this came at a huge cost. She had to leave behind her 5-year-old son. The slave owner sold Sojourner's son to a plantation 1,000 miles away in Alabama. Meanwhile, Sojourner remained in hiding in New York until her freedom was official. When the coast was clear, Sojourner filed a court case saying her son had been sold illegally. She was one of the first black women to file a court case in America, and even though it seemed nearly impossible, she won. She got her son back. In 1843, she changed her name to Sojourner, which means traveler, and became a preacher. She traveled the country sharing her message for women's rights and the abolition of slaves everywhere. Although Sojourner could neither read nor write, her voice carried far. In December 1851, she gave a speech that she made up on the spot. In it, she advocated on behalf of black women who faced the double discrimination of racism and sexism and had often been left out of the fight for equality. The speech is known by its most famous refrain, "Ain't I a woman?" She went on to encourage African Americans to fight on behalf of the Union in the Civil War, for former slaves to be given places to live, and for the desegregation of streetcars. She was an agitator and a fierce activist for equality. Harriet Tubman, 1822 to 1913. Abolitionist, nurse, scout, spy. One of 9 children, Harriet was born into slavery under the name Araminta Harriet Ross. Both her parents were West Africans hailing from the Ashanti warrior people. While many of her siblings were sold and traded to distant plantations, one good fortune Harriet had was to remain united with her parents throughout her youth. When she was 15, Harriet was accidentally hit in the head with an iron weight and fell into a coma for 3 days. Her brain injury resulted in narcolepsy, a permanent disorder that caused her to fall asleep at random times. Fearing her slave owner would eventually discover her injury, she decided to run away to avoid the risk of being sold or traded. After escaping to freedom in 1849, Harriet could have stayed in the North. But now that she knew it was possible to escape, she wanted to return for her family and anyone else she could rescue. Over the course of 11 years, she returned to the South 19 times and led more than 300 men, women, and children to freedom and safety via the secret system called the Underground Railroad. Also known as a conductor, Harriet continually put her life at risk to save others. It wasn't the last time. During the Civil War, Harriet served as an army nurse and went undercover as a spy for the North. Harriet was always looking to help other people. What very little she had, she gave away to others. She lived in poverty most of her life and donated her time, money, and property to people in need. In 2016, the U.S. Treasury announced a historic proposal to change the $20 bill. It would replace the longtime face of it, Andrew Jackson, with Harriet, making her the first woman on the front of any U.S. paper currency. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, 1831 to 1895, physician. From the very beginning, caring for others was a part of Rebecca's life. She was raised in Pennsylvania by her aunt, who provided health care services to the people in her neighborhood. This passion for helping her community became her life's mission. She attended a private school in Massachusetts and went on to work as a nurse for 8 years. In 1860, she applied to an all-white medical school, the New England Female Medical College, a bold and risky move, but she was accepted. Rebecca graduated in 1864, becoming the first African-American woman physician in the country. Out of more than 50,000 physicians in the United States at the time, only about 300 were women, and Rebecca was the only black woman. She began her practice in Boston, specializing in the care of women and children. But when the Civil War came to an end, she moved to Richmond, Virginia to work with the freed slaves. So Rebecca worked with the Bureau to provide health care to them. Rebecca had been born free in Delaware, the state with the highest number of free blacks before the war. She was new to the adversity and racism of the South, but she endured it for the sake of helping the poor and needy. Throughout her career, Rebecca had a particular passion for helping women and children. In 1833, she published a 2-part text titled A Book of Medical Discourses. The first part focuses on the care for infants and the second part on women's health. It is possibly the first medical article published by a black woman. Mary Bowser, circa 1840 to, we don't know. Civil War spy. Very little is recorded about Mary's life. What we do know is that she was born into slavery in Richmond, Virginia around 1840. She was purchased by the wealthy Van Loo family as a companion for their daughter Elizabeth. The Van Loos were no ordinary family in the South, though. They had a secret. They were Northern spies and abolitionists involved in the secret Underground Railroad. Prior to the war, when Mary was a teen, Elizabeth granted her freedom and arranged for her to receive her education in Philadelphia. Mary wanted to assist the Van Loos in their efforts against the Confederacy. At the time in the South, it was illegal for a black person to have an education or even to read. For that reason, no one would ever suspect Mary was a threat. As a slave, she could hide in plain sight, so she agreed to go undercover as a slave in Jefferson Davis's Confederate White House. While cleaning, she would steal glances at confidential memos, and while serving dinner, she would eavesdrop on conversations between Confederate officials. She passed information about the troop movements and army plans to Elizabeth, who passed them along to Union officials. Rumor has it that Mary had a photographic memory and was able to read a page once and recite it back word for word. After the war, Mary educated free slaves and traveled around the United States giving speeches. For a long time, she was careful to conceal her true identity, using a variety of aliases. Eventually, she disappeared completely, but she is remembered. In 1995, she was inducted into the Military Intelligence Hall of Fame. Mary Eliza Mahoney, nurse. Mary grew up before the American Civil War as a free woman in Massachusetts. Though as a black woman, her career options were limited, Mary knew that she wanted to be a nurse. When she was 18 years old, she started working at the New England Hospital for Women and Children, but she wasn't saving lives yet. She had to work as a cook and as a scrubber. Although Massachusetts was a leading state in the anti-slavery movement, discrimination and segregation were still a way of life. The hospital, however, prided itself on the fact that it treated both black and white patients. It also had a nursing program that admitted one black student and one Jewish student per year. They considered this quite progressive. Mary worked on the hospital staff for 15 years before being admitted into the nursing program in 1878 at the age of 33. That year, 42 students were accepted, but only 4 graduated. Mary was one of them. As a private nurse, Mary had an incredible reputation as being patient and skillful. She traveled around the East Coast, and her work helped challenge racism in the South. She was soon inducted into American Nurses Association. In 1908, she helped support the founding of the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses, which later named a major award in her honor. Mary's nursing career lasted 43 years. She was recognized as a pioneer and in 1976 was inducted into the ANA Nurses Hall of Fame. Her old hospital, the New England Hospital for Women and Children, renamed the Dimmock Center in 2007, features a new healthcare facility named after her, the Mary Mahoney Center. Charlotte E. Ray, 1850 to 1911, lawyer. Charlotte's father was a minister and abolitionist newspaper writer. Her mother helped slaves escape north on the Underground Railroad. Together they made sure all of their 7 children had a college education. Charlotte definitely inherited the activist and proactive qualities from both her parents. As a young woman, she moved from New York City to Washington, D.C. to study at the Institution for the Education of Colored Youth. After completing her education, she began teaching at Howard University, training students to become elementary school teachers. But Charlotte had other things in mind. She applied to Howard University's all-male law school under the name C.E. Ray. The admissions committee was surprised to discover she was a woman, but let her into the program nevertheless. She studied commercial law while still teaching. It was a demanding workload, but in 1872 she finished the program and became the first African American woman to graduate from law school in the United States. She was only the 3rd woman of any race to complete law school in America. Many noted her skill and legal knowledge, but her gender and race prevented her from having a true shot at building a career. For several years she attempted to establish a practice, but was unsuccessful. This setback did not stop Charlotte from making an impact. She returned to teaching, this time with young students in the public school system. She was an advocate for women's rights to vote and a delegate at the the 1876 National Women's Suffragette Association. She is remembered as a pioneer, and her legacy lives on in the Charlotte E. Ray Award, given to a promising African American woman law student every year. Ida B. Wells, 1862 to 1931, journalist and activist. Ida was a natural-born activist. Wherever she saw injustice, she stood up against it. She was born a slave in Mississippi, but emancipation came to the South when she was still a child, and this meant she had the opportunity to get an education. After college, she worked as a teacher, but lost her job for criticizing the poor conditions of black segregated schools. In 1884, 71 years before Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus in Montgomery, Alabama, Ida refused to leave her seat in the woman's car on a train in Memphis, Tennessee. She had purchased a first-class ticket, but was asked to leave and join the African American car. Ida did not go quietly. She filed a lawsuit against the railroad and eventually won her case. There was no rule that said black women could not ride in the women's car. However, segregation legislation was soon implemented in Tennessee, and Ida received no further justice in that matter. 3 years later, her case was overturned. She took her frustration and wrote an article in the newspaper under the name Iola, and later became known as Iola, Princess of the Press. Journalism became her outlet. She was the owner and editor of the Memphis Free Speech and Headlight, and later the Free Speech. She took a major stance against lynching and faced death threats for her words. In 1898, she led a huge anti-lynching campaign all the way to the White House. Ida knew the power of words and knowledge, and continued to use her voice to stand up for what was right. Zora Neale Hurston, writer, folklorist, anthropologist. Zora's unique upbringing led her down a path of storytelling and creativity. She was born and raised in Eatonville, a historic town in northern Florida. Eatonville was special because in 1886 it became the first self-governed all-black city in America. It was an idyllic, nurturing environment that fostered an extreme sense of pride in its culture and traditions. As a young woman, Zora worked in a number of jobs and saved up enough money to enroll at Howard University in 1981. There she published her first story. By 1925, Zora had won awards for writing and had caught the attention of prominent black authors living in Harlem. That year, she moved to New York and continued her undergraduate degree as the first black student at the all-women's Barnard College. She worked alongside famous creatives including Langston Hughes, Countee Cullen, and Elaine Locke, who were involved in the black artistic movement known as the Harlem Renaissance. They were called the New Negroes. Zora was celebrated as a writer who personified the movement and was given the nickname Queen of the Renaissance. Zora recognized the need to record African American stories, and she celebrated them long before others realized how important they would be. Her famous works include her masterpiece, Their Eyes Were Watching God, a novel inspired by her Eatonville past. In Mules and Men, her published collection of stories from North Florida, she tracked and recorded the tales that built up the rich culture of African American South. Tell My Horse was the result of years of research and study of folklore and religion in Jamaica and Haiti. Upon her passing, the famous writer Alice Walker called her a genius of the South. And we will be continuing that book next reading. Please don't read this book. Written by Deanna, Kizis. Oh, hi. I see you've opened this book. But are you actually going to read it? Please don't. On the cover, then I should warn you, there are rules in this book. And the rules are if this book says do not do something, you definitely, positively cannot do it. So please don't do any of the cool or awesome things this book tells you not to do. Because then you'll have way too much fun. And kids don't like to have fun, right? Right. The first thing you cannot do is do not make fart noises. Do not. Just do not do it. Hey, did you just make fart noises? Fart noises are the worst. Okay, you really need to follow the rules of this book or you're going to have fun. And that would be terrible. So whatever you do, do not make the weirdest, silliest, most redonkadonk face you could possibly make. Did you just make the weirdest, silliest, most redonkadonk face you possibly could? I think you might be confused about the rules in this book. As I said, the rules has book. No, wait, I mean, this book has rules. It says that right there. And you're supposed to have fun. Hang on. You're not supposed to have fun. Yeah, that's it. So whatever you do, do not tap your head and rub your belly at the same time. Nobody on earth can do that anyway. Hold the phone. Did you just tap on your head and rub your belly at the same time? This is unbelievable. And now that you've tapped your head and rubbed your belly at the same time, are you thinking you should probably hug yourself and yell, "I'm the best"? Well, stop doing that right there. You master of misery. You absolutely cannot hug yourself and yell, "I'm the best." No. Wow, you just did. This book said not to do something, but you did it again. So this time, do not turn to whoever else is in the room and say, "You're awesome too." Ah, why does this keep happening? You really can't take any more fun. I just can't. Which is why I'm going to make a very important request. Please, oh please, do not ask to read this book again. You don't want to, do you? No. Go play, go color, go to bed. Just do something else. But whatever you do, please don't read this book. The end. Psst by Adam Rex. One day when I was at the zoo, over here. Oh, hi. What's up? Not much. Great, listen. Could you get me a new tire? Why do you need a new tire? My swing broke, see? Oh. Well, I guess so. Great. Get me two, just in case. And so he goes off. Oh, look how far he's walked. Yes? Hola. Trash cans? C. Okay. Metal or plastics? Oh, I read this wrong. Yes? Hola. Do you want some tires too? No, trash cans. Trash cans? C. What for? For trash. Okay. Metal or plastic? Some of each, please. And so he keeps walking. It's a very interesting interaction with a bear. Psst. It's dark in here. Yes, we like it that way. I suppose you want me to get something for you? Yes. Flashlights. Many, many flashlights. Thank you. I thought you liked the dark. We do. But the hippopotamus doesn't. There's a hippopotamus. And so he keeps on walking. Uh-oh, there's penguins. Let me guess. You all want top hats. Ha ha! Hilarious. What then? Paint. We want paint. Bright colors. Why paint? Is she serious? Take a look around. Paint it is. All right. Uh-oh, another person. Psst. What are you? We are sloths. Yeah, so am I sometimes. Could you get us bicycle helmets? Bicycle helmets? Why would you need bicycle helmets? The sloth falls with a thunk. Right, bicycle helmets. Psst. Yeah, what now? We want corn. Corn. Hey, this sign says I can't feed you. We don't want to eat the corn. Corn. We want to turn it into a clean burning fuel. Sure. Corn. So he walks along. Psst. What do you want? A comfy chair. A wheelbarrow. A wheelbarrow? You'll need to carry everything back. Oh, yeah. Hey, how am I supposed to pay for all this anyway? Coins. The peacock picks them out of the fountains. Okay. I didn't know where I was going to find all that stuff they wanted. Luckily, there was a store across the street that sold everything. So much stuff. I wheeled back and gave the animals all the things they wanted. I hope they enjoy them. A week later, I went to the circus. The end. If You Take a Mouse to the Movies by Laura Numeroff. If you take a mouse to the movies, he'll ask you for some popcorn. When you give him the popcorn, he'll want to string it all together. Then he'll want to hang it on a Christmas tree. You'll have to buy him one. On the way home, he'll see a snowman in your neighbor's yard. He'll want to make one of his own. Then he'll need a carrot for a nose. When he's all finished, he'll decide to build a fort. He'll ask you for help. Then he'll want to make some snowballs and have a snowball fight. Playing outside will make him cold. He'll want to go outside and curl up. He'll want to go inside and curl up on the couch. He'll ask you for a blanket. Once he's nice and cozy, he'll want to listen to Christmas carols. You'll have to find some on the radio. He'll probably sing along. The carols will remind him of his Christmas tree, so he'll want to make ornaments. You'll get him some paper and glue. He'll ask you for glitter. When the ornaments are done, he'll hang them all up. Then he'll stand back to look at the tree. He'll notice his popcorn string is missing. So he'll want to make another one. He'll ask you for some popcorn. And chances are, when you give him the popcorn, he'll want you to take him back to the movies. The end. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for coming to Cammie's Book Reading with Kids. Bye!